Congressman, just the visual symbolism of Harris speaking at the ellipse, will it create an effective split screen in voters' minds and literally on social media feeds?
Well, Anna, yes, this is all about contrast. That's what Kamala Harris is going for. She is looking to speak directly to a lot of those voters, and we've seen some of Steve Kornacki's reporting and analysis. There is still a pretty significant universe of persuadable voters out there, voters who are aligned behind one candidate or another, but not firmly, and still about 6 or 7% who remain undecided. These are the voters who Kamala Harris is speaking to, trying to grow her coalition, trying to show that contrast with Donald Trump, remind people about January 6th and what that meant to our country and what Donald Trump's role was in that very, very difficult episode for America. So this is, I think, as strong a closing argument as she can come up with. Obviously, she has some challenges. She's running as part of an administration that remains unpopular, according to polling. But this contrast, this is something that could close the deal with some of those still undecided voters.
Richard, yesterday we noted how VP Harris had confidently said, "We will win." And that was after months of, consistently saying we are the underdog in this race. Well, now there's New York Times reporting that her team has quietly grown more confident about their prospects. What do you attribute that to? And do you read into this at all?
Well, let me just say one thing about the speech tonight. I think it's going to be not just the whole democracy piece and the comments about fascism and embracing Hitler and racism and this carnival of grievances and misogyny and racism at Madison Square Garden, as Carlos said, just only underscores the message. But she's going to be talking about the economy. She's going to basically say, Donald Trump is all for tariffs and for tax cuts for the wealthy. I'm for tax cuts for the middle class and for lowering costs. She's going to talk about reproductive freedom, which, again, we kind of know what Trump did about that. And she's also going to be talking about, again, all these issues that are under the broad democracy heading. And the reason they're comfortable, they're looking at these, at the state of the plate today is they're looking at early vote. The women are coming out in ways that after Dobbs, we have seen in election after election. And it's in the swing states. It's measurable. It's demonstrable. And we also know from some polls of people who actually have voted in early that independents are going for Kamala as well. So there's any number of reasons to look at the polling today and the actual early voting as very, very positive for her.
And Congressman, as we monitor this Trump appearance, you said more Republicans must condemn the despicable Puerto Rico comments from that Trump rally. But here's how Trump's running mate reacted to that controversy. Watch.
I haven't seen the joke. Maybe it's a stupid racist joke, as you said. Maybe it's not. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the joke. But I think that we have to stop getting so offended at every little thing in the United States of America. I'm so over it.
Vance later said it was a fake outrage cycle, referring to the fallout following the joke. Why is it so hard to condemn the racist joke? And by not unequivocally condemning it, what message does that send to voters?
Yeah, and I think this ambiguity, this trying to have it both ways really doesn't work. Look, I'm against cancel culture. I do agree. I think people are oftentimes over-offended in our country. This is different. This was a political rally where there was a statement made that diminished, denigrated millions of American citizens. Puerto Ricans are citizens of the United States. They live all over this country. And aside from being wrong, this could be costly politically to Donald Trump in what is a very close race. Again, Puerto Ricans are in every state. They all are U.S. citizens. They can all vote. And there can be a spillover effect outside the Puerto Rican community. People who understand that these types of comments are just plain wrong and offensive and destructive and may come out and say, you know what, I wasn't sure if I was going to vote. Maybe my neighbor's Puerto Rican, my work colleague, I'm going to go out and vote to condemn this kind of speech. So every Republican has to send a clear message. Hey, this is not okay. This was a political rally. This was not some comedy show.
Right.
This is someone who's trying to lead the country. So this is just totally unacceptable.
But when the top of the ticket isn't coming out and condemning it, why should anybody expect those below them in other leadership roles to come out and condemn it? But we are learning more about how that joke may have ended up in that rally. NBC News has this exclusive, and we've learned this comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, workshopped his Puerto Rico joke at a New York comedy club the night before that Trump rally. And here's a key part of this reporting. Quote, the joke did not draw laughs, just a handful of awkward chuckles. Hinchcliffe told the audience that he would be performing at the Madison Square Garden rally the next day and said multiple times during his routine that he would get a better reaction tomorrow at the rally. So, Richard, this clearly wasn't an off-the-cuff joke that no one could control. We know his remarks were choreographed. They were in a teleprompter, and nobody made any qualm about that joke until hours later.
Well, it speaks to how much, well, two things. One, in the Trump world, you don't apologize for anything. If you say people are eating cats and dogs, and if you see we won an election that we lost, whatever it is, then everybody in that cult, everybody who worships him has to kind of get, and especially J.D. Vance, has to get on that page. And most of the public sees that as nauseating. Secondly, it speaks to how much they embrace racism. I mean, all these speakers, it wasn't just this clown. It was all the people talking about misogyny in ways that we wouldn't even kind of give any credence to in any context, but they were yucking it up in Madison Square Garden when speaker after speaker were denigrating Hispanics and blacks and Jews and women. The list goes on. These are the people supposedly that Trump's trying to appeal to. Who knew that the October surprise would be Trump shooting himself in the foot?
Huh, interesting. Do you think, Congressman, that this was a miss by the Trump team, or was it just that they find these types of comments acceptable?
The culture that Donald Trump has instilled in the Republican Party is one where anything goes, where there's rarely an apology, where people just double down. And look, it's very easy to underestimate the power, the significance of this kind of comment. There's comments that have been associated with past campaigns, like Mitt Romney with a 47% dismissing millions of Americans, Hillary Clinton, the basket of deplorables, dismissing millions of Americans. This is a comment in that vein, except that it was a lot more crass and offensive. Of course, not from the mouth of Donald Trump, but at one of his campaign rallies. So, Anna, this could have a major impact. I wouldn't be surprised if President Trump actually came out today and maybe not apologized, but clarified that he does not uphold this type of view, because I think it could be very damaging to him politically.
Can I just say one quick thing? We know he holds the view because we saw him tossing rolls of paper towel at Puerto Ricans after the hurricane. We know he holds that view because he withheld aid from Puerto Rico in the immediate aftermath. So whatever he says is pointless. We know exactly. He subscribes to this 100%.
Listen to how some Nikki Haley voters are reacting to this.
As a Republican, I have become so upset because this is not the Republican Party that I know.
It was so out of pocket. It was so disrespectful.
I'm not going to vote for Harris because of it. It still makes me torn.
I think it's disgusting. I can't say that it would change my vote. I don't think there's any place for that in a political rally. I don't think there's a place for that anywhere.
Quickly, if you will, Congressman, based on your conversations with Republicans and your instincts, where do you see Haley voters landing on Tuesday? Will they be a decisive factor?
The Haley voters are a lot of the voters who are either undecided or very loosely attached to either of the two candidates. This is a type of comment, Anna. This is a type of dynamic that could really push people away. And I'll tell you, here in the state of Florida, and of course, this is a red state, but Rick Scott is running in a competitive race here, and he immediately distanced himself from these comments because he understands how potent they are and how much they could damage Republican candidates.